Hello there. 3 prime ministers and 4 chancellor of the exchequers or finance ministers in 1 year, and soon 14 million people in need. The dream of Singapore on the Thames has given way to large tax increases. After the so-called mini-budget disaster of the resigned Liz Truss, Hunt's government statement on the Office of Budget Responsibility report was eagerly awaited. The figures from the OBR, which is comparable to the German economy statistics here, are dramatic and historically bad. Great Britain faces a lost decade. Average household income after taxes will return to 2013 levels. Tax cuts have so far been part of the Tories' brand essence. In the future, however, the British population will have to pay higher taxes but can expect fewer benefits in return. The word shrinkflation is making the rounds in Westminster, the frightening combination of falling economic growth on the one hand and high inflation on the other. Great Britain is still one of the richest countries in the world, but commentators agree the whole country is getting poorer and social inequality will continue to increase. Many Britons admire the Scandinavian model with its social policies, a successful level of education, and clever family and gender policies. In other words, a strong state. At the same time, however, they dream of an American tax level. Now they get the worst of both worlds. Every payslip will give a small picture of the disaster that government policies have caused to society as a whole in recent years. In the future, there will be even fewer funds available for precautionary state. Great Britain's economy is not growing, but has been languishing at a comparably low level since the 2000s. Society is aging, lending rates are rising, austerity policies and corona have left deep scars, and Brexit is making things much worse. For a long time now, people have not been aware of this state in their everyday lives. The NHS waiting lists is getting longer, and crime is on the rise, and at a rate at which crimes are solved is falling. Public services are taken for granted, such as functioning public transport, water supply, waste disposal, and gas or electricity supply at affordable prices, and are gradually being lost. A wave of strikes is sweeping the country because there is no established social partnership. Experts have not only complained about the lack of government investment for years. Not only is there a lack of money, but also the political will to get to the root of the problems, especially in the health and education systems. After 12 years in power and a large degree of self-preoccupation with and around Brexit, it's no longer clear what the Tories stand for programmatically. No country in Europe is coming through the current crisis situation as badly as the United Kingdom. Now, a policy is taking its revenge that has combined two factors into a toxic mixture. The deadlocked structure of social inequality created by Margaret Thatcher in the 1980s and stagnant economic growth. If you combine these factors, you get a toxic cocktail that is no longer digestible, especially for middle and low-income households. The very small, wealthy British elite will soon be faced with a precariat that has no reserves or additional resources after the years of austerity, after Corona, and after the Black Friday of October this year. But is it the hour of the Labour Party now? The British political system does not currently have general elections in sight. Politically, the Conservative Party lives on the flesh of Boris Johnson, a whopping parliamentary majority of 80 seats. It's unlikely that there will be an election before 2024. But will history repeat itself then? Many political observers are currently experiencing a déjà vu. Much of the current crisis is reminiscent of Black Wednesday, that was September 16th in 1992, when the Bank of England tried to counter speculation against the British pound sterling by buying billions, and the Tories under John Major suffered an enormous loss of prestige. 5 years later, Tony Blair and New Labour took over the government. Back then, voters were resentful, even though the last Conservative Chancellor of the Exchequer, Kenneth Clarke, had a booming economy to show for himself. In stark contrast, the OBR was already projecting, with 2 years to go before the next election, a massive slump in growth and deep cuts in living standards. So, does the opposition have a home game here? The November polls show a clear trend. Conservatives 25%, Labour 48%. When speaking to those close to Keir Starmer, many advise caution though. Yes, the popularity of the Labour Party has increased again since the internal party reforms were implemented. And yes, the office of the opposition leader has now been equipped with campaign experts. With Raf Adval, Starmer has entrusted a proven economic expert with the task of writing the new election program, the Manifesto. He represents a new pro-business agenda that Labour clearly wants to launch in the next campaign. But there's still a lot of work to do. Keir Starmer does not enjoy the same popularity as young Tony Blair did. Scotland is no longer coloured red, but firmly in the hands of Nicola Sturgeon's Independence Party, the SNP. Under current first-past-the-post systems, Labour would need to take 326 of the 650 seats at the next election. They currently only have 195. This would be a bigger swing than Margaret Thatcher's in 1979 or David Cameron's in 2010. If Labour won just 280 seats, a coalition with the SNP would be essential, a party that derives its raison d'être from the quest for independence from London and wants to enforce it with all its might. In any case, if the SNP were to be abandoned, Labour would also have to win back seats from the Tories in the so-called Red Wall, the traditional Labour country lost to Boris Johnson in 2019. However, the still ruling Tories will do everything they can to continue working on the reshaping of the constituencies in the remaining time, so that new majorities will become increasingly difficult. Labour will be in campaign mode for the next few months. Every word will be weighed in gold, also and especially in questions of identity policy, to which Brexit is undoubtedly one. The not unencumbered relationship with the trade unions, which are becoming stronger again, must also be clarified again. After the state crisis in October, the party had to strategically reposition itself unexpectedly quickly. But what program does Labour stand for now that the modernization program for socio-ecological transformation presented at the last party conference is very difficult to finance? Does politics mean the end of progressive programs after Black Friday? Additional government borrowing is currently no longer easily financed. So what else can Labour score with? The random profit tax has already been implemented. Social assistance, pensions and the minimum wage have been adjusted as far as possible. Labour's greatest advantage will probably be not being held responsible for the crisis. And so only one thing helps. In addition to a convincing answer to one of the biggest crises in the country, Keir Starmer must above all radiate confidence like the young Blair did in his most famous election commercial, "Things can only get better." Love this song, by the way. And I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.